I'm Abigail Mitchell, 42, and for 12 years I've poured my heart into creating perfect holiday meals for my husband's family. Last week, my sister-in-law Karen called with news that shattered my world. We've all decided Harper shouldn't come to Thanksgiving this year. My autistic daughter, my beautiful, gentle 15-year-old, was being excluded from a family gathering I was expected to cook. Apparently, the family wanted a normal holiday without disruptions. Normal. That word would change everything. Before I dive into this heartbreaking story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever felt excluded or had to stand up for someone you love, please hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this family drama unfolded and what happened when I finally found my voice. To understand the magnitude of this betrayal, you need to know a bit about our family dynamics. I met Nathan Mitchell when we were both 28, and I fell head over heels for his kind eyes and gentle demeanor. Nathan, now 45, is a good man, loving, hardworking, but with one significant flaw: he's always been conflict avoidant, especially when it comes to his family. We have two wonderful children. Harper, our 15-year-old daughter, was diagnosed with autism when she was 4. She's a beautiful soul, sensitive, honest, with an incredible memory for birthdays, and a passion for drawing detailed maps of fictional places. Yes, she has sensory issues. Certain sounds like the clanking of silverware or sudden laughter can overwhelm her. Sometimes she stims by rocking or flapping her hands when excited or stressed. Occasionally, when things become too much, she needs to retreat to a quiet space. Our son Ethan is 12, fiercely intelligent, and even more fiercely protective of his sister. He's grown up as Harper's biggest advocate, often explaining her needs to other kids or stepping in when he senses she's becoming overwhelmed. Then there's Nathan's family, the Mitchells. Richard and Patricia, my in-laws, come from old money and old values. Richard, 73, is a retired corporate attorney who still sits on several boards. Patricia, 70, is the quintessential society matron whose entire identity revolves around her social standing and family reputation. They live in a sprawling, colonial home filled with antiques that children aren't supposed to touch. Karen, married to Nathan's older brother James, is the kind of woman who gets preventative Botox and judges everyone's clothing choices with a silent but obvious once-over. She has two perfect children who attend private school and participate in an exhausting array of prestigious extracurricular activities. Karen has always treated me like Nathan married beneath him, though she disguises it as helpful advice. Rebecca is the newest addition, married to Nathan's youngest brother Michael for just 3 years. She's still finding her place in the family hierarchy, which unfortunately means following Karen's lead on most things. She seems nice enough when alone, but transforms in Karen's presence. When I first joined the Mitchell family, Patricia ruled the holiday kingdom with an iron fist disguised in a velvet glove. Every Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner was a showcase of her social status: fine china, elaborate centerpieces, and precisely timed courses. When Harper was born, Patricia doted on her first granddaughter. But after Harper's diagnosis, I noticed the temperature cool considerably. 12 years ago, when Patricia developed arthritis in her hands, I offered to take over holiday hosting. I still remember her reluctant handover of her grandmother's stuffing recipe delivered with the warning, "Do try to do it justice, Abigail." From that moment, I became determined to create perfect holiday gatherings. I spent weeks planning menus, accommodating everyone's preferences and dietary restrictions. I transformed our modest home into a magazine-worthy setting despite our limited budget. I cooked everything from scratch, staying up for days to ensure every dish was flawless. What nobody saw was how carefully I orchestrated these events to accommodate Harper. I planned seating arrangements to put her next to the most understanding family members. I prepared a separate plate with foods that wouldn't trigger her sensory issues. I timed serving around her medication schedule. I researched and implemented 1,000 invisible accommodations to help my daughter participate in family traditions. There had been incidents over the years, of course. When Harper was 7, she became overwhelmed by the noise level and hid under the dining room table, refusing to come out. At Easter 2 years ago, she had a meltdown when James's son crashed his new remote-control car into her feet repeatedly, despite her asking him to stop. Last Christmas, she accidentally knocked over a crystal wine glass when she flapped her hands in excitement over a gift. After each incident, I noticed the subtle eye rolls, the meaningful glances between Patricia and Karen, the way conversation would stop when Harper and I entered a room. But I convinced myself that my efforts, both culinary and maternal, were building bridges of understanding. I truly believed I was creating a family environment where my daughter could be accepted for exactly who she is. How terribly wrong I was. The call came on a Thursday afternoon, exactly 1 week before Thanksgiving. I was in the middle of finalizing my shopping list, having already ordered the 20-pound heritage turkey that Patricia preferred. My phone lit up with Karen's name, and I answered with distracted cheerfulness. "Hi, Karen. I was just working on the menu." Did Rebecca's youngest get over his aversion to sweet potatoes? I was thinking of trying a new recipe. There was a pause, then Karen's voice artificially bright. "About Thanksgiving, Abigail? That's why I'm calling, actually." Something in her tone made me put down my pen. "We've all been talking, and we think it might be best if Harper sits this one out," she continued as casually as if suggesting a change in dessert options. The words didn't register at first. "Sits this out? What do you mean?" Well, Karen sighed dramatically. The holidays are stressful enough without disruptions. Last Christmas was really difficult for everyone when Harper had her episode. Her episode, I repeated, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "You mean when your son kept taking photos with the flash directly in her face after I asked him 3 times to stop?" Karen continued as if I hadn't spoken. "And frankly, Patricia isn't getting any younger. She shouldn't have to deal with that kind of stress at her age. James's promotion will be announced at the end of the year, and the Andersons will be joining us this year. They're important clients of the firm. We need everything to go smoothly." Blood rushed to my face as the full meaning hit me. "Are you saying my daughter isn't welcome at Thanksgiving dinner?" "Don't be so dramatic, Abigail. We're just suggesting Harper might be more comfortable at home. Nathan can bring you and Ethan, and then maybe come back for Harper after dinner, or maybe you could hire someone to stay with her." My hand tightened around the phone. When exactly was this decision made? Another pause. "We discussed it at dinner last weekend at Mom and Dad's." "A dinner I wasn't invited to," I stated flatly. "It was last minute," Karen replied dismissively. "Anyway, I'm sure Nathan mentioned it." The betrayal sliced deeper. Nathan hadn't said a word. "I need to go," I managed to say before hanging up. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by recipe cards and grocery lists, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath me. My hands were shaking so badly I knocked over a cup of pens. By the time Nathan came home from work, I had progressed from shocked disbelief to simmering rage. "Did you know?" I demanded the moment he walked through the door. His momentary confusion, followed by the flash of guilt in his eyes, confirmed everything before he could speak. "You knew they were planning to exclude our daughter from Thanksgiving, and you didn't tell me." "Abby, it wasn't like that," Nathan said, loosening his tie. "They were just talking. I didn't think they'd actually go through with it. Talking about banning our child from a family holiday, and what just sat there." "I told them it was a bad idea," he said weakly. "But you didn't stand up and walk out. You didn't call them out on their ableism. You didn't immediately tell me what they were planning behind my back." My voice rose with each statement. "Instead, you let me continue planning a meal for people who think our daughter isn't good enough to sit at their table." Nathan's face crumpled. "I didn't want to upset you. I thought I could handle it quietly." "Handle it? This isn't a workplace disagreement, Nathan. This is our child." Our argument was interrupted by Ethan appearing in the doorway, his young face serious beyond his years. "They don't want Harper at Thanksgiving," he asked, his voice small but indignant. Before either of us could respond, I saw Harper standing behind him in the hallway, her eyes wide with confusion. My heart sank, knowing she'd overheard at least some of our argument. After getting the kids settled with dinner, Harper, blissfully unaware of the specific topic of our disagreement, thanks to Ethan's quick thinking in distracting her, I retreated to our bedroom and called Patricia directly. Her response was cool and unapologetic. "Abigail, we're simply doing what's best for everyone involved. The holidays are about family harmony." "Harper is family," I responded, my voice shaking. "Of course she is, dear," Patricia said in the condescending tone she reserved for when she thought I was being unreasonable. "But you must admit that accommodating her, special needs, puts a strain on everyone. Wouldn't she be happier somewhere quieter anyway?" "She's happiest with her family, Patricia. With people who love and accept her exactly as she is." There was a telling silence before Patricia responded. "Well, we've made our decision. I hope you'll be reasonable about this. Nathan understands our position." As I hung up, I realized this wasn't a sudden decision. This was the culmination of years of subtle exclusion now finally spoken aloud because they believed Nathan would ensure my compliance. They had always seen Harper as an inconvenience, a flaw in their perfect family portrait. And my husband, the man who had promised to stand by us through anything, had sat silently while they plotted to erase our daughter from the family narrative. That night, after the kids were in bed, I did something I'd never done before. I checked Nathan's phone while he was in the shower. My hands trembled with a mixture of guilt and determination as I opened his messages. There it was, a family group chat I wasn't part of, titled simply Mitchell's. I scrolled up, my stomach churning as I absorbed months of conversations about us, about Harper. Karen complaining about having to walk on eggshells around her niece. James making a joke about emotional support, noise-canceling headphones for everyone at Christmas. Rebecca asking if Harper really needed to be included in her son's birthday party because the noise might upset her. And Nathan. My husband's responses were minimal, a laughing emoji here, a non-committal we'll see there, but his complicity was clear in his silence, in his failure to defend our daughter. Then a message from Stephanie Michael's wife appeared. She'd sent me screenshots from the same group chat with a brief text. "You should see this. I'm sorry. I've been uncomfortable with this for months, but didn't know how to tell you." The screenshots showed even more discussions dating back to Easter about how to approach the Harper situation. Patricia suggesting that Nathan needs to realize the strain his daughter puts on family gatherings. Karen wondering if Harper's issues were partly due to Abigail's parenting style. Rebecca asking if anyone else noticed how Ethan seemed held back by always having to look after his sister. The most damning evidence came from a conversation 3 weeks prior. Patricia had hosted a small family dinner, one I'd been told was canceled, where the explicit topic was how to handle Thanksgiving. Nathan was clearly present in the photos James had shared of the evening. The next morning I confronted Nathan with everything I'd discovered. "You were there," I said, my voice hollow as I showed him the photos. "You sat at that table while they planned to exclude our daughter, ate your mother's pot roast, while they criticized my parenting, and then came home and lied to me about where you'd been." Nathan's face crumpled. I was trying to change their minds quietly. I thought I could convince them over time without causing a family rift. A family rift. The rift happened the moment they decided our daughter wasn't worthy of being included. I was shouting now, months of buried suspicions erupting. "And you've been playing both sides, pretending to support us while letting your family think their behavior is acceptable." "That's not fair," Nathan protested weakly. "You know how my mother gets. I was just trying to keep the peace." "At what cost?" I demanded. "Our daughter's sense of belonging, her self-worth, my trust." Nathan had no answer for that. As I dug deeper, more betrayals surfaced. My niece, Emma Michael's 11-year-old daughter, messaged me saying she missed Harper and didn't understand why they couldn't play together at Uncle James's pool party last summer, a pool party we'd been told was canceled due to maintenance issues. There had been a family trip to an amusement park in July that was never mentioned to us. A weekend at Patricia and Richard's lake house that we learned about only through Facebook photos Nathan had been careful to untag. Each discovery was another knife twist. How many canceled events had actually happened without us? How long had Harper been systematically excluded while I remained oblivious, still killing myself to create perfect holiday meals for people who didn't want my daughter at their table? The most painful revelation came when I found emails between Nathan and Patricia discussing a family therapy session I'd suggested months ago. I'd wanted to help the extended family understand autism better and learn how to interact with Harper more comfortably. "Don't worry," Nathan had written to his mother. "I'll talk her out of the therapy idea. I know it would just make everyone uncomfortable." In that moment, staring at those words on the screen, I realized Nathan hadn't just failed to stand up for Harper, he had actively participated in hiding the family's true feelings from me. He had chosen his parents' comfort over his daughter's inclusion and his wife's trust. When confronted with this evidence, Nathan finally broke down. "I was trying to protect you both," he sobbed. "I know how much effort you put into those family gatherings. I didn't want you to know what they really thought. So you let me send our daughter into a lion's den where people were merely tolerating her presence. You let me believe they were accepting her when they were actually building a case for her exclusion." My voice was ice. "That's not protection, Nathan. That's betrayal." For the first time in our marriage, I asked Nathan to sleep in the guest room. As I lay alone in our bed that night, I wondered how many other lies had structured our family life, how many compromises Nathan had made at Harper's expense to please his family, and whether our marriage could survive such a fundamental breach of trust. The days following these revelations were some of the darkest I've ever experienced. I moved through our home like a ghost going through the motions of normal life while feeling hollowed out inside. Sleep became elusive. I'd lie awake, replaying moments from past family gatherings, reinterpreting them through this new painful lens. Patricia's tight smile when Harper needed her food served on a separate plate. Karen's exaggerated sigh when Harper covered her ears during a particularly loud round of laughter. Rebecca quickly moving her toddler away when Harper approached to show him a drawing. The signs had always been there, I just hadn't wanted to see them. The hardest part was deciding what to tell Harper. How do you explain to your child that the family she loves has rejected her? After consulting with her therapist, I decided on a simplified version of the truth. Harper and I sat on her bed, surrounded by her favorite weighted blanket and comfort items. "Sweetheart, there's been a change of plans for Thanksgiving this year," I began carefully. "Are we having turkey or ham?" she asked, her focus charmingly, literal as always. "We'll definitely have turkey," I assured her, "but we won't be going to Grandma Patricia's house. We're going to do something different this year, just our family." Harper's brow furrowed as she processed this. "But we always go to Grandma's. It's tradition. You make the turkey, and Grandpa Richard cuts it." "Sometimes traditions change," I explained gently. "And this year we're starting a new tradition." She was quiet for a moment, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her blanket. "Is it because of me? Because of what happened with the wine glass at Christmas?" The innocent question shattered what was left of my heart. "No, sweetheart. It's absolutely not because of you." Karen looked angry when I knocked over the glass. She said I ruined the tablecloth. I hadn't known about that comment. Another betrayal to add to the pile. "Harper, look at me," I said, waiting until her eyes briefly met mine. "You have done nothing wrong. Nothing. Some people don't understand that different isn't wrong, it's just different. And that's their loss. So they don't want me there." Her voice was small, but matter of fact. I considered softening the blow, but remembered her therapist's advice about Harper's need for honest, clear communication. Some family members thought it might be better if you weren't at Thanksgiving this year. But they're wrong, and I told them so. Harper processed this with the straightforward logic that I've always admired in her. If they don't want me, I don't want to be there anyway. Her simple dignity brought tears to my eyes. That's exactly right. And if they don't want you, they don't get me or Dad or Ethan either. We're a package deal. Ethan, who had been listening from the doorway, came in and sat on Harper's other side. "Their Thanksgiving is going to suck without us anyway," he declared with 12-year-old defiance. "Mom makes the best food, and I bet Aunt Karen will burn the turkey." Harper smiled at that, and I felt a surge of pride in both my children. They were showing more wisdom and solidarity than most of the adults in this situation. That night, Nathan tried once again to suggest a compromise. What if he began hesitantly as we prepared for bed? Just for this one holiday, we hired Sarah from next door to stay with Harper. She loves Sarah, and it would just be for a few hours. I stared at him, ice forming in my veins. "Are you seriously suggesting we leave our daughter with a babysitter on Thanksgiving so we can go pretend to be a happy family with people who have explicitly rejected her?" "I'm just trying to find a solution that works for everyone," he pleaded. "The only acceptable solution is for your family to apologize and welcome all of us, or for us to spend the holiday with people who actually love and accept our daughter. They do love her, they just what Nathan find her existence inconvenient, wish she could be normal for their comfort. That's not love." "You're not being fair. They're trying their best." "No, they're not," I exploded. "Their best would be educating themselves about autism. Their best would be asking what accommodations might help Harper feel comfortable. Their best would be loving her exactly as she is, instead of treating her like a problem to be solved or hidden away." Nathan flinched at my words, but had no response. For the second night, he retreated to the guest room, and the distance between us felt wider than ever. As Thanksgiving approached, I found myself reliving moments that now seemed suspect. Patricia suggesting Harper might be more comfortable eating in the kitchen last Easter. Karen asking if Harper really needed to participate in the family photo at Christmas. Rebecca suddenly needing to leave with her children whenever Harper joined them to play. Had my daughter been enduring subtle rejection for years while I remained oblivious, focused on producing the perfect holiday meal, the thought made me physically ill. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, could barely function through the fog of betrayal and grief. But beneath the pain, something else was building, a slow-burning anger that would eventually light my way forward. 5 days before Thanksgiving, I made my first real decision. Sitting at the kitchen table with my abandoned holiday planning notes spread before me, I picked up my phone and composed a group text to the entire Mitchell family. "I will not be hosting or cooking for Thanksgiving this year. Make other arrangements." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then turned off my phone. The response was immediate and overwhelming when I checked my messages hours later. Patricia expressed disappointment in my childish reaction to a reasonable family decision. Karen complained about the late notice and how difficult it would be to prepare a comparable meal on short notice. James mentioned the Andersons would be expecting a certain standard given what they'd heard about our family gatherings. Only Michael responded differently. I understand. Call me when you can. When I did, he surprised me with his candor. I've been uncomfortable with how the family treats Harper for a long time, he admitted. But I didn't say anything. It was easier to go along, and I'm ashamed of that. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, suspicious, after so many betrayals. Because Emma has been crying since she heard Harper might not be at Thanksgiving. She loves her cousin and doesn't understand why everyone makes such a big deal about Harper being different. He paused. And because Stephanie has been calling me a coward for not standing up to my family, and she's right. Michael's honesty was refreshing, but it also highlighted how many opportunities there had been for someone, anyone in the family, to speak up before things reached this breaking point. What are you going to do about Thanksgiving? He asked. I don't know yet, I admitted. I can't imagine celebrating anything right now. That evening, Ethan approached me with determined optimism. Mom, I have an idea for Thanksgiving, he announced. What if we did our own special dinner, just us the way Harper would want it? What do you mean? I asked. Like we could have all Harper's favorite foods even if they don't go together. And we could use the blue plates she likes and keep the music at the right level and not make her hug anybody if she doesn't want to. His thoughtfulness brought fresh tears to my eyes. That sounds wonderful, honey. And he continued eagerly, we could invite Grandma and Grandpa Carter and Uncle Michael's family if they want to come. People who actually like Harper. My parents, who lived a few hours away, had always been understanding of Harper's needs. Unlike the Mitchells, they had educated themselves about autism and made genuine efforts to connect with their granddaughter on her terms. When I called to explain the situation, my mother's outrage on Harper's behalf was validating. We'll be there, she promised immediately. And Abigail, I'm proud of you for standing up to them. With my parents' support and Ethan's enthusiasm, I began to plan an alternative Thanksgiving one centered around Harper's comfort rather than Patricia's expectations. When I showed Harper the menu I was considering with all her favorite foods and none of the textures she struggled with, her face lit up. We can really have macaroni and cheese instead of stuffing, she asked incredulously. Absolutely. This Thanksgiving is going to be all about what makes us happy, not what tradition dictates. For the first time since Karen's phone call, I felt a glimmer of hope. We could create our own traditions, our own definition of family. I wouldn't have to spend days preparing dishes no one appreciated while worrying about Harper's comfort. Instead, we could have a celebration that truly included everyone. When Nathan saw my new Thanksgiving plans, he seemed torn. My mother called again, he admitted. She's really upset about all of this. And how do you feel? I challenged him. He was quiet for a long moment. I feel like I've been trying to please everyone and ended up hurting the people who should matter most. He took my hand tentatively. I'm sorry, Abby. Really sorry. I should have stood up to them a long time ago. It was the first genuine apology he'd offered, and while it didn't erase the hurt, it felt like a tentative step toward rebuilding trust. So what are you going to do now? I asked. Tell my family that we're a package deal. All of us or none of us? His voice grew stronger as he spoke. And if they can't accept Harper exactly as she is, then they're missing out on knowing an amazing person. It was exactly what I needed to hear, but after so much deception, I wasn't sure I could trust his words. I hope you mean that, I said cautiously, because I can't do this alone anymore. You won't have to, he promised. I'm done trying to please everyone. Our children come first, both of them exactly as they are. I wanted to believe him. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to hope that something good might come from this painful revelation, a stronger family unit with boundaries firmly in place to protect our children from those who couldn't or wouldn't accept them. 3 days before Thanksgiving, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. I opened the door to find Patricia, Karen, and James standing on my porch, faces set in expressions of righteous indignation. This has gone far enough, Patricia announced, brushing past me into the house without waiting for an invitation. We need to discuss your overreaction to a simple family request. I stood frozen in the entryway, unprepared for this ambush. Karen followed Patricia, giving me a look that somehow managed to be both condescending and falsely sympathetic. James entered last, his business face on the one he used for difficult client negotiations. They arranged themselves in my living room as if staging an intervention. Patricia sat primly in our best armchair, while Karen and James flanked her on the couch. The power dynamic was unmistakable, 3 against 1. Abigail Patricia began in her most reasonable voice. I understand you're upset, but you're putting Nathan in an impossible position. This family has certain standards and expectations. Standards that don't include my daughter, I interrupted, finding my voice. No one is saying Harper isn't part of the family, Karen jumped in her tone, soothing in a way that made my skin crawl. We're just concerned about her missing out on family activities because of her. Challenges. Wouldn't it be better for everyone, including Harper, if certain events were adjusted? What Karen means, James added in his lawyer voice, is that some family gatherings could be modified to accommodate Harper, while others might be more suitable for neurotypical family members. It's a reasonable compromise. A compromise, I repeated slowly. So some family events would include my daughter and others wouldn't. And who exactly would decide which events are deemed suitable for Harper U. Patricia, a family vote where we're outnumbered? They exchanged glances, confirming my suspicions. This isn't about Harper's comfort, I continued, anger building. This is about your comfort, your convenience, your perfect holiday tableau without the inconvenience of accommodating someone different. Now Abigail Patricia's voice took on a steely edge. We've always been very tolerant of Harper's condition. Tolerant. The word hit like a slap. My daughter doesn't need your tolerance. She needs your love and acceptance, the unconditional kind that family is supposed to provide. Karen shifted tactics. Think about how Harper feels at these gatherings. All the noise, the expectations, the disruption to her routine. Is it really fair to her to put her through that just so you can feel like everything is normal? The manipulation was so transparent, it was almost impressive. Don't pretend this is about Harper's well-being, I said coldly. If you were concerned about that, you'd ask what accommodations would help her feel comfortable, not exclude her entirely. There are financial considerations as well, James interjected smoothly. Dad has been clear that family unity is important to him when considering how to distribute his estate. Your stubbornness could have long-term consequences for your children's future. I stared at him in disbelief. Are you actually threatening my children's inheritance if we don't comply with excluding Harper from family events? Before he could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Mom! All heads turned to see Harper standing there, hands nervously fluttering at her sides. Her face reflected confusion and distress. She'd clearly heard at least part of our conversation. Nathan appeared behind her, his expression darkening as he took in the scene. What's going on here? He demanded, moving to stand protectively beside Harper. We're trying to reason with your wife, Patricia said tersely. This Thanksgiving drama is getting out of hand. Nathan's face flushed with anger. You mean the drama you created by deciding my daughter isn't welcome at a family holiday? That drama? I felt a surge of gratitude at his words. Finally, he was taking a stand. Harper's hands began flapping more intensely, a sign of her increasing anxiety. Are they mad at me? She asked Nathan in a stage whisper. No, honey, Nathan assured her, but his eyes were fixed on his mother. They're not mad at you. They're just showing us who they really are. Patricia rose stiffly. I can see you're both determined to be difficult about this. But consider carefully what you're doing, Nathan. Thanksgiving is just one day. Don't throw away years of family tradition and connection over one holiday. It's not about one holiday, I interjected. It's about whether Harper is considered a full member of this family or a problem to be managed. And you've made your position very clear. I think you should leave now, Nathan said quietly to his family. We'll let you know our decision about Thanksgiving. After they departed with final warnings about reconsidering our relationship with the family, Nathan turned to me, his face pale but determined. There's no decision to be made. We're spending Thanksgiving with people who love all of our family. Harper, still processing what had happened, looked up at us. I heard Grandma say I have a condition. Is being autistic bad? No, sweetheart, Nathan knelt to her eye level. Being autistic is just part of who you are, like having blue eyes or being good at drawing maps. It's not bad or good, it's just you. And we love everything about you. Later that evening, as we were still recovering from the confrontation, another surprise arrived my parents a day earlier than expected. We thought you might need reinforcements, my mother explained, as she swept into the house, immediately enveloping Harper in a hug that carefully respected her sensory boundaries. My father followed with suitcases and a determined expression. Your mother told me what's been happening, he said grimly. I have some choice words for Richard Mitchell next time I see him. Their unwavering support broke through the last of my emotional defenses. For the first time since this ordeal began, I allowed myself to cry openly, releasing the hurt and betrayal I'd been containing for Harper's sake. It's all right, Abby, my mother soothed, just as she had when I was a child. Your real family is here now. That night, Nathan and I had our first real conversation in days. I should have stood up to them years ago, he admitted, his voice thick with regret. I kept telling myself I was keeping the peace for everyone's benefit, but really I was just avoiding conflict at Harper's expense. Why now? I asked. What changed? He was quiet for a moment, seeing Harper's face when she asked if being autistic was bad, realizing that if we don't stand up for her, she'll internalize their rejection. I can't let that happen to my daughter. It wasn't a complete answer, and our trust remained fragile, but it was a beginning. For the first time since Karen's call, we slept in the same bed, the distance between us lessened if not entirely gone. The next morning brought yet another shock. Patricia had called my parents directly, ostensibly to welcome them to town, but actually to enlist their help in convincing us to be reasonable about Thanksgiving. She had the nerve to suggest we persuade you to leave Harper with a sitter. My mother fumed. As if I would ever agree to exclude my own granddaughter from a family holiday. The battle lines were clearly drawn now, with the Mitchell family tradition on one side and our daughter's dignity on the other. There was no middle ground to be found, no compromise that didn't require Harper to be less herself or us to be less her parents. In our bedroom that night, I turned to Nathan, needing assurance that he wouldn't waver again. Tomorrow, your mother will call again, or your father, or both. They'll pressure you, guilt you, maybe even threaten you. Are you sure you can hold firm? Nathan took my hands in his. I've spent my whole life trying to please my parents at the expense of my own happiness. I won't sacrifice my daughter's well-being for their approval anymore. Whatever happens next, we face it together, all four of us. I wanted to believe him. For Harper's sake, for our family's future, I needed to believe him. But the weeks of deception and years of complicity had shaken my faith. Only time would tell if his newfound courage would hold in the face of his family's manipulations. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Nathan's phone rang during dinner. His father's name flashed on the screen. Nathan excused himself to take the call, and I watched him pace in the backyard, his expression growing increasingly tense. When he returned, his face was pale. They've organized a replacement Thanksgiving dinner, he said flatly. At my parents' house with the whole extended family. The Andersons will be there. The Johnsons, too. And we're not invited, I confirmed, though I already knew the answer. Just me, Nathan clarified, his voice tight. Dad made it very clear that I'm expected to fulfill family obligations regardless of our situation. He practically spat the last word. What did you tell him? I held my breath, the last shreds of our marriage hanging on his answer. I told him I'd be spending Thanksgiving with my family, my real family. He ran a hand through his hair, looking simultaneously exhausted and determined. He didn't take it well. There were threats about my position in the family business, about our children's college funds that my parents had promised to contribute to. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a social media notification. Karen had posted photos of elaborate Thanksgiving preparations at Patricia's house, with the caption, "So blessed to carry on true family traditions with those who matter most. Number real family values. Number blessed number Thanksgiving." The calculated public display was clearly meant to wound, to make our exclusion both official and visible to our entire social circle. I showed Nathan the post silently. He stared at it for a long moment, then suddenly looked up with fire in his eyes. They think they can shame us into falling in line. They've always used social pressure to control everyone in the family. His voice hardened. Not anymore. He pulled out his own phone and started typing. Before I could ask what he was doing, he handed it to me to read. After 12 years of creating holiday meals for my wife's family, they've decided our autistic daughter isn't welcome at the table. Today we're choosing acceptance over tradition, love over intolerance. If you've ever been excluded because you didn't fit in, you're welcome at our table. Number autism acceptance, number real family love. Are you sure? I asked, stunned by his public stance. Your mother will be furious. Good, he said simply. Let her be furious. I'm done hiding the truth to protect people who won't protect my daughter. He posted it without hesitation, tagging both Karen and Patricia. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Friends we hadn't heard from in years messaged their support. Parents from Harper's support group shared their own stories of family exclusion. Several of Nathan's cousins expressed shock and dismay, saying they had no idea Harper had been deliberately excluded. Most surprisingly, Nathan's position at work was flooded with supportive messages. His colleagues, many of whom had met Harper at company picnics, expressed outrage on her behalf. His boss, who had a nephew with autism, pulled Nathan aside the next day to assure him that his job was secure, regardless of any family business connections. Karen's carefully constructed narrative was crumbling, and she was not taking it well. Her increasingly desperate attempts to control the situation included a tearful phone call to Nathan, claiming she was being attacked for no reason, and a private message to me suggesting we were damaging the family beyond repair. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The most significant moment came when Nathan received a call from Michael. "Rebecca and I won't be at Mom and Dad's for Thanksgiving," he said firmly. "Neither will Emma and Jake. If Harper isn't welcome, we don't want to be there either." "Mom will never forgive you," Nathan warned his younger brother. "Maybe it's time we stopped organizing our lives around what Mom will or won't forgive," Michael replied. "Your post made me realize how many times I've looked the other way when Harper was being mistreated. I don't want my kids learning that kind of cowardice." By the day before Thanksgiving, the family's schism was complete. Patricia and Richard, along with James and Karen, were holding firm on their exclusionary Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, our guest list had expanded to include my parents, Michael's family, 2 couples from Harper's support group, and Nathan's elderly Aunt Louise, who declared she was too old for this nonsense and wanted to be on the right side of history. That evening, we received one final call from Patricia. She demanded to speak to both of us, so we put her on speakerphone. "I hope you're satisfied," she began without preamble. "You've divided this family and humiliated us publicly, all because you refuse to be reasonable about Harper's limitations." "Her autism isn't a limitation," Mother Nathan replied calmly. "It's a difference, and one we celebrate rather than hide." "You've always indulged her," Patricia snapped. "If you'd gotten her proper treatment when she was younger, instead of all that acceptance nonsense, perhaps she would be normal by now." The statement hung in the air, breathtaking in its cruelty and ignorance. Nathan's face went white, then red with fury. "Is that what this has always been about?" he asked quietly. "You've been waiting for Harper to be fixed, to become normal?" Patricia's silence was damning. "Harper doesn't need to be fixed," I interjected, my voice shaking with emotion. "She's perfect exactly as she is. The only broken thing here is your understanding of what family means." "I've always accepted Harper," Patricia protested weakly. "I've always loved her." "No," Nathan said with sudden clarity. "You've always tolerated her, waiting for her to become someone she isn't. That's not acceptance, and it's certainly not love." After we hung up, Nathan sat heavily on the couch, looking as though the foundations of his world had shifted. In many ways, they had. The mother he thought he knew had revealed her true feelings, and they were ugly beyond reckoning. "I keep thinking about all the times she insisted Harper would grow out of it or just needed firmer discipline," he said hollowly. "I thought she was just uninformed, but she was actually waiting for Harper to become someone else, someone worthy of being a Mitchell." I sat beside him and took his hand. "I'm sorry," I said sincerely. "I know how much this hurts." He squeezed my hand. "I'm the one who should be sorry. I should have seen it sooner. Should have protected you both better." He looked at me with reddened eyes. "Can you ever forgive me?" "I'm trying," I answered honestly. "Every time you choose Harper, choose us, it helps." We sat in silence for a while, grieving the family we thought we had, while beginning to appreciate the stronger, truer family we were building from the ashes. Thanksgiving morning dawned clear and crisp. Instead of rising at dawn to begin cooking as I had for the past 12 years, I slept in until Harper came to wake me excited about our new holiday plans. "Is it time for pancakes?" she asked, bouncing slightly on her toes, her version of jumping with excitement. Nathan, already awake beside me, smiled at our daughter. "Chocolate chip or blueberry?" "Both," she declared confidently. This was our first departure from tradition, a special breakfast before the main meal, something I'd never had time for when preparing to serve Patricia's precisely timed Thanksgiving dinner. Our home gradually filled with the people who truly mattered. My parents arrived early to help with preparations, my father and Ethan bonding over football while my mother and I worked side by side in the kitchen. Michael and Stephanie came next with their children, Emma immediately seeking out Harper for their special cousin time. Nathan's Aunt Louise arrived with her signature pecan pie and sharp-tongued wisdom. Two families from Harper's support group joined us later, bringing dishes and understanding in equal measure. The kitchen was chaotic in the best possible way. Without Patricia's rigid expectations, we were free to create a meal that reflected our actual preferences rather than tradition for tradition's sake. The turkey was still the centerpiece, but alongside it was Harper's beloved macaroni and cheese, my father's spicy cornbread stuffing that Patricia had always deemed too regional, and a vegetarian lasagna for Stephanie, who had never been accommodated at previous Mitchell gatherings. I watched Harper helping my mother arrange name cards at the table, a task she had always loved but had been deemed too important for her at Patricia's house. Her face was serene, comfortable in an environment adapted to her needs, rather than one where she was expected to adapt regardless of her comfort. Nathan moved around the kitchen with new confidence, no longer anxiously checking his phone for messages from his family. When I caught his eye across the room, he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes for the first time in weeks. "Need any help?" he asked, coming to stand beside me at the counter. "Just enjoying the moment," I admitted. "Look at her." I nodded toward Harper, who was carefully explaining to Emma the perfect symmetrical arrangement of the place settings. "She's completely at ease. No anxiety, no stress, no feeling like she has to suppress who she is." Nathan put his arm around my shoulders. "This is what holidays should feel like." As we gathered around the table, a beautifully mismatched collection of our everyday dishes, rather than Patricia's formal china, Michael raised his glass. "I'd like to propose a toast," he said, his voice slightly nervous but determined. "To new traditions based on love, instead of obligation. And to my brave brother and sister-in-law who taught me what family really means." Nathan visibly moved, reached for my hand under the table. "To family," he echoed. "The real kind." Throughout the meal, I kept noticing small moments of joy that would never have been possible at Patricia's formal dinner. Harper freely using her fidget toy between bites without receiving disapproving looks. Ethan telling jokes that made everyone genuinely laugh rather than politely smile. My father serving seconds without waiting for the hostess's permission. The children excused to play when they were finished eating rather than required to sit quietly through adult conversation. Most striking was the absence of tension. For 12 years, I had spent Thanksgiving dinner hyper-vigilant, constantly monitoring Harper for signs of distress, anticipating problems before they could arise, running interference between my daughter and critical family members. I hadn't realized how exhausting it had been until I experienced a holiday without that burden. During dessert, my phone pinged with a message. Karen had posted more photos of the rival Thanksgiving at Patricia's house. The images showed an immaculately set table, formal attire, and strained smiles. The caption read, "Maintaining standards and traditions no matter what. Number classic Thanksgiving." Michael glanced at my phone and snorted. "Looks like a funeral." I was about to put my phone away when Nathan stopped me. "Wait," he said with a glint in his eye. He gathered everyone around Harper, who was happily wearing the paper crown from her Christmas cracker, another tradition Patricia had always forbidden as tacky. "Let's take our own photo." The resulting image captured everything. Our new Thanksgiving represented genuine joy, comfortable imperfection, and most importantly, Harper at the center of our family, rather than hidden away from it. Nathan posted it with a simple caption, "Thankful for a family that loves unconditionally. This is what real tradition looks like. Number, best Thanksgiving ever." Later, as our guests were preparing to leave, we received unexpected messages from several extended family members who had attended Patricia's dinner. Nathan's cousin Jennifer wrote, "Dinner was weird without you guys. Grandma Patricia kept pretending everything was normal, but everyone knows what happened. Uncle Richard got drunk and yelled at Dad for taking sides. I wish I'd been brave enough to come to your house instead." Nathan's other brother James didn't contact us directly, but his teenage son Tyler sent a furtive text. "Dad won't say it, but he feels bad about everything. Mom's the one who won't back down. I miss Harper. She's way more fun than the Anderson kids." These messages confirmed what we'd suspected: the family unity Patricia had been so desperate to project was as artificial as the centerpiece on her dining table. As we cleaned up after everyone had gone, Harper surprised me by saying this was the best Thanksgiving ever. "Really?" I asked. Even without Grandma Patricia and Grandpa Richard, she considered this thoughtfully. I didn't have to be quiet or sit still for so long. And nobody looked mad when I used my chewy necklace. She paused, then added with her characteristic honesty, "I do miss Grandpa's coin tricks, though." I'm sorry, sweetheart, I said, feeling a pang for the relationship she deserved to have with her grandparents. It's okay, she said simply. Aunt Louise taught me a card trick instead. Her resilience brought tears to my eyes. While Patricia and Richard had lost a beautiful relationship with their granddaughter due to their narrow definition of acceptability, Harper would be okay. She had found her people, those who saw her autism not as a flaw to be tolerated, but as an integral part of who she was. That night, as Nathan and I lay in bed, reviewing the day, he turned to me with serious eyes. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For forcing me to see the truth about my family. For not letting them exclude Harper. For giving me the chance to be the father and husband I should have been all along." I took his hand. "We still have a lot to work through." I know, he acknowledged. But today felt like a beginning, not an ending. Didn't it? Looking back on the day, the genuine laughter, the relaxed atmosphere, the freedom to be ourselves without judgment, I had to agree. Sometimes it takes a complete breakdown of what you thought was important to discover what truly matters. "Yes," I said, squeezing his hand. "A beginning." As December unfolded and Christmas approached, we settled into a new normal. The complete rupture with Nathan's family created both grief and unexpected freedom. Nathan entered therapy to process his complex feelings about his parents and his role in enabling their behavior. I joined him for some sessions as we worked to rebuild trust in our marriage. Harper surprisingly seemed to be thriving. Free from the subtle criticism and judgment she had endured at family gatherings, she blossomed. Her teacher commented on her increased confidence at school, and her stimming behaviors, which she had increasingly tried to suppress around her grandparents, returned to their natural, self-regulating rhythm. A week before Christmas, Patricia reached out. The text came on a Sunday morning. "We should discuss Christmas arrangements. Your father and I are willing to put Thanksgiving behind us if you are ready to be reasonable." No apology, no acknowledgement of the hurt they had caused, just an expectation that we would eventually fall back in line with family expectations. Nathan read the message over my shoulder, his jaw tightening. "She still doesn't get it, does she?" "No," I agreed, sadly. "She doesn't." After careful consideration, Nathan responded, "Mom, we're happy to rebuild our relationship with you and Dad, but only with the understanding that Harper is an equal and valued member of this family exactly as she is. We won't be attending any family gatherings where that isn't recognized and respected." Patricia's reply was terse. "I see you're still being difficult. Let me know when you're ready to compromise." "There's no compromise on loving our daughter fully," Nathan muttered as he put his phone away. His unwavering stance healed something in me. The husband who had once prioritized his parents' comfort over his daughter's inclusion was gone, replaced by a man who understood what truly mattered. We decided to host our own Christmas, expanding on the success of Thanksgiving. Michael and Stephanie immediately accepted our invitation. My parents would come for the week. Aunt Louise insisted on bringing her famous rum cake that Patricia had banned years ago for being too boozy for a family gathering. To our surprise, James called Nathan directly. "Tyler's been asking about spending some time with Harper," he explained awkwardly. He misses her. Karen and I were wondering if he could maybe come over for part of Christmas Day." It was the first crack in the unified front Patricia had tried to maintain, and while it wasn't the full reconciliation we might have hoped for, it was something. Nathan agreed that Tyler was welcome, though we made it clear that our home was a safe space for Harper, and anyone who couldn't respect that shouldn't come. On Christmas Eve, as we hung stockings and arranged presents, I reflected on how much had changed in just 1 month. The holiday season I had dreaded after the Thanksgiving revelation had become something new and precious, a time focused on genuine joy rather than performance, on meaningful connections rather than social obligations. "I've been thinking," Nathan said as we sat by the Christmas tree after the children were in bed. "I spent so many years trying to please my parents, and it was never enough. I kept thinking if I just tried harder, they would finally approve, finally see me as good enough. And now," I prompted gently, "now I realize they're the ones who weren't good enough, not as parents, not as grandparents. They had a beautiful, unique granddaughter, and instead of appreciating her, they tried to make her invisible." He shook his head. What a waste. Christmas Day brought its own kind of magic. Harper woke us at dawn, stimming with excitement, her hands flapping joyfully as she surveyed the presents under the tree. We abandoned Patricia's tradition of formal dress for breakfast and stayed in our pajamas until noon. Tyler arrived looking nervous but brightened immediately when Harper showed him her new detailed map of a fantasy kingdom she'd been working on. Karen dropped him off with a tight smile and murmured pleasantries but declined to come inside. When Tyler hugged Harper goodbye at the end of his visit, I caught Nathan wiping away a tear. "That's what family should look like," he whispered. The new year brought more changes. Patricia and Richard maintained their distance, occasionally sending messages through James that made it clear they still saw themselves as the wronged parties. But other family members began to reach out directly. Nathan's cousins, freed from Patricia's social control, invited us to gatherings she wasn't attending. Old family friends called to express support after hearing both sides of the Thanksgiving story. In February, we received an unexpected letter from Rebecca, Michael's wife, who had been silent throughout the conflict. "I owe you both an apology," she wrote. "When I married Michael, I was so desperate to be accepted by Karen and Patricia that I went along with things that made me uncomfortable. Watching how you stood up for Harper has made me examine my own behavior, and I don't like what I see. I should have been a better aunt and a better person." Her honesty was refreshing, and it helped heal some of the hurt from those months of exclusion. As spring approached, bringing with it the next set of family holidays, we found ourselves more at peace with our new family configuration. The grief of broken relationships remained, but it was balanced by the joy of authentic connections with each other, with friends who had become family, and with relatives brave enough to choose love over conformity. Harper, ever perceptive in her own way, summed it up best during a family therapy session. "Before holidays made my stomach hurt," she said, matter-of-factly. "Now they make me happy. I like being with people who like me the way I am. Out of the mouth of babes, as they say." As I look back on the journey from that devastating phone call to where we are now, I realize that what seemed like the end of our family was actually its rebirth. By forcing us to examine what true acceptance means, the exclusion of Harper from that Thanksgiving table ultimately led to a stronger, more authentic family bond. I still cook holiday meals, but now I do it with joy rather than anxiety. I no longer measure my worth by the perfection of my table settings or the precision of my timing. Instead, I measure it by the genuine smiles around our mismatched dinner plates, the comfortable chaos of our gatherings, and most importantly, by Harper's freedom to be fully herself in the center of it all. What happened to us wasn't unique. Too many families face similar choices between conformity and acceptance, between tradition for tradition's sake and creating new traditions that honor who we really are. If you've ever had to choose between pleasing others and standing up for someone you love, I hope our story gives you courage. True family isn't defined by DNA or obligation. It's created through acceptance, respect, and unconditional love. Sometimes the family we choose or the family who chooses us matters more than the family we were born into. So, as I close this chapter of our story, I'm asking you, what does true family mean to you? Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between tradition and acceptance? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in these struggles. We're all finding our way together, one holiday at a time. Thank you for listening to our story. May your table always have room for those who accept you exactly as you are.